organized by ISS College of Teacher Education, PERINTHALMANNA, Kerala, and KHAJA Bandanawaz University, Kalaburagi, Karnataka, in collaboration with FAROOK Training College, KOZHIKODE, Kerala, and MESS PILLAI College of Education and Research, CHEMBUR, Mumbai, Maharashtra. My name is Surekha Chidambaranath, and I am an assistant professor at MESS PILLAI College of Education and Research. So today's topic, as you all know, is selection of research problems and sample. Selecting a research problem involves identifying relevant knowledge gap, while selecting a sample entails choosing representative participants for the study, both crucial for conducting meaningful research. So we understand what an important step it is while conducting and research in social sciences. So to share her expertise in this area, we have Dr. Bharti Kaushik here with us. Dr. Kaushik is an associate professor at Central Institute of Educational Technology, CIET, NCERT, New Delhi. She has also worked at RIE Bhopal as a lecturer in special education and Maharaja Surajmal Institute, Delhi, as a lecturer in education. She has more than 20 years of experience in teaching and working in a field of inclusive education. She has around 37 research publications in various UGC recognized journals, 21 chapters in edited book, and 4 books in English language and 2 in Hindi language. Ma'am has coordinated in the development of Prashast, a disability screening checklist for schools, and has coordinated with Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center under the Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry in development of Indian Sign Language Dictionary with 10,000 terms. Ma'am is currently working on standardization of Indian Sign Language as envisioned in NEP 2020. She is also conducting study on impact of ICT-based accessible interventions of NCERT on holistic development of students with special needs and the education of ICT at school scheme under Samagra Shiksha. She has also been conducting live interaction series titled Teaching Learning Interventions in Inclusive Classrooms, Ask the Experts on PM eVaidya channels. We are all very delighted to hear from such a remarkable person speak today on such a crucial step in research. I welcome you, ma'am, and over to you. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yeah. So, friends, welcome. And I'm looking forward to having an interactive session with you all. So, I'll try to keep you awake. I'll not let you sleep because I have worked hard on both the presentation and this week has been especially busy for me because suddenly I had to deliver 1 hour daily live session on precious application, as you have mentioned in my introduction as well. And since the topic for today would be selecting a research problem. So let me share my PPT. Hope it is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to begin with first slide. Now we are on the first slide, right? Are you able to see the first slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wonderful. Because I'll need this kind of reassurance because many a times the internet at my institute ditches us or creates a lot of technical issues. Okay, so the very first thing that I would like to ask anybody and everybody who is present today in this session, why I want to do research. Why? Because that will give us a lot of insight that how to choose the research problem. What is my need for doing the research? Anybody? Anybody can unmute and share. So
Ma'am,
who
to
would
know,
like to share? Yes.
ma'am, to know more about something for our curiosity to identify more problems,
Okay.
solutions.
Great. More problems, more solutions, and to satisfy our curiosity. So how many of us are agreeing with this?
Yes, madam. Search again more knowledge, madam. Again and again.
Search again and again more knowledge. Okay.
Yes, madam.
That
To
is
get-
G.
To
Anybody
get
else?
to get a solution for a problem.
To get a solution for a problem. Okay. But that is my question, right?
Yes, madam.
Then I'll move on. Yes.
For promotion and upgrading and promotion.
Now that's being quite honest. Maximum of us do want to do research because it is linked with our promotions, right? It is mandatory. We have reached a point in our careers where the next stage we won't be able to reach unless or until we do some researches.
Ma'am, to know,
Yes. Yes, go on. Somebody was speaking.
to know about the unknown things, ma'am. That's why
To
we
know about an unknown things. Wow. And somebody has written in the chat box to add meaningful addition to the existing field of knowledge, to resolve prevailing problems in the society, to know, okay, to go from unknown to known. This might be they wanted to say, finding something new, and detailed study topic for solving problems that continuously affect us. And somebody said, to be very honest, for secured job. Yes, true. So let's say if whatever is my research aim, whether it is related to securing job, whether it is related to having promotions, or maybe any other thing. If I am a very curious person and I want to know what's happening in the society and how I want to contribute and what could be the scientific solutions to a particular problem that I'm facing, is this problem faced by me only or somebody else is also facing this kind of a problem? So if my aim of doing research is this, that I want to satisfy my curiosity, then that would be, I'll say, the purest intention for conducting research. But I do understand and I do realize each one of us is a human being and we are not living in ideal situation and ideal world and ideal conditions. So we have to be practical, and practicality says that many of us wanted to do research maybe because it gives us pleasure to hear the word doctor as a title in front of our name. Somebody may want to do research because he or she wanted to say, like to be called as doctor such and such, right? Another person may want to do research due to promotions, maybe due to jobs, eligibility, due to better work prospects. These are also the valid reasons. The best part in social sciences is no answer is completely wrong and no answer is completely right. So how do I select? Now, the aim of my research is clear, why I want to do research. That will affect both the quality of the research and the research problem that you are going to select. So before pinpointing the research problem, I should be aware of what are the sources of research problems. And before I'm saying research problem, I'll say research area. If you will ask me, for me, the best thing is give me a book or something, and if I'm able to read that book in one go or continuously without a break, maybe that gives me a lot of ideas regarding my own interest areas. Many a times, as happens with mostly with children when they are exploring themselves, what happens? A child may be seen saying or maybe heard saying that I can't climb, I can't ride a bicycle, but or I can't shoot, I can't handle a rifle for dummy rifle for shooting or everything. Or maybe I can't sing in front of large audience, but given the opportunity and given a little motivation and encouragement, the child may excel in this area. That means unless or until you explore your abilities, the same goes with adults as well. Thank you for keeping yourself muted, Sumanji. You wanted to share something? No. So the same occurs, the same happens with the adults as well. So the first step is zeroing down your interest area. What is your interest area in which you want to do research? And that interest area may be different from whatever discipline in which you have done the post-graduation. Say, for example, I have had experience of interacting with a person who has done MSc mathematics, but when it came to the identifying area for PhD, the person said, I don't want to do research in pure mathematics. I wanted to do something like why children are not able to do higher order mathematics in school. So that was his research interest. Instead of pure mathematics, the person was interested in pedagogy of mathematics. And how he zeroed down on this area, because I often found him or her interested in looking for literature related to pedagogy practices at the school level in the library, and he or she often used to share his or her reading experiences with me. So together we sat down and we found that this could be his or her interest area, and he now, as on today, the person is a PhD degree holder in that particular area. So this could also give me an idea what is my core interest area, because research, apart from whatever be my aim to do research, whether curiosity, whether job, whether pragmatic, practical consideration, but research is a serious business and it requires lot of time, energy, efforts, and also sustenance. So if you are not interested in the area, truly, you may feel doing research in that particular area is a huge burden. You will not enjoy the journey of starting research and towards its culmination, either in the form of degree, diploma, certificate, whatever it is, or in the form of research report or research articles. In order to enjoy that, the pre and the most important requirement, in my opinion, is your interest area. And you can identify your interest area maybe through listing what kind of books and literature you are interested in reading. Say, for example, in the PPT I have written, Rohit wishes to conduct research in the area of school timetable. So he or he visits the library or searches online for timetable and gets millions of results related to timetable creator app, Rail Yatri, college timetable, etc. He makes another attempt and this time enters school timetable, and the results were sample school timetable, importance of school timetable, and so on. So what does this signify? This signifies that Rohit was very clear in what area he wanted to do his or her research. He wanted to focus on school timetable. And you know, you and I many a times end up doing this mistake while reviewing the related literature. If I wanted to do research on science, pedagogy of science, so what are the keywords that I should look for? Should I look for fables of science teaching? Should I look for stories of science teaching, or should I look for pedagogy of science? If I'm aware of the keywords that I'm going to put in the Google window, then maybe I'll be able to get the desired literature that interests me. So one source of finding my core research area would be, let me identify what kind of literature I wanted to read, and maybe then probing deeper. If first I have to identify my area of interest, then I'll have to find out the related or the past researches that have been done in that particular area. So this could be my one source of research problem and research area, review of related literature. Nothing new that I'm telling you, but I'm trying to focus on the Google keywords that usually we all are relying nowadays on ICT solution instead of going to the library and searching the journals, because almost all the journals are available nowadays online. Then second source would be unutilized or underutilized theory. So now my question to all of you would be, which one of the following is more appropriate for taking any current research, any research in the current times? Piaget's theory, Kohlberg's theory, or Erik Erikson's theory? Or ICT solutions for teaching history, or teaching history through projects or field visits? Yes, your responses. Anybody? You can write your responses in the chat box as well. Hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
So which one of these topics would be more appropriate if I wanted to conduct research? Shall I conduct research in Piaget theory, Kohlberg theory, Erik Erikson's theory? Suppose somebody approaches you and seeks your opinion on this. Because one thing is clear, he or she wanted to do research on the school education itself. Or maybe children or something. Anybody has heard these terms before? Surekha ji, have you heard about Kohlberg's theory?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hemlata ji. No?
Ma'am, there are some responses on the chat.
Chat. Okay, yes. 13 responses. Okay. Piaget's theory. Yes on moral development. Yes, no, depends on the topic. Erik Erikson, Piaget, ICT related, ICT solutions. I would prefer Erik Erikson, ma'am, ICT. Fine. But all those who wanted to do Piaget's theory, don't you think Piaget's theory of cognitive development is mostly research topic, preferred by many of the researchers? If you'll Google Piaget's theory, you'll get n number of researches, more than what you may be able to find maybe on ICT solutions for teaching history, or teaching history through projects and field visits, or maybe on Erik Erikson's theory. So looking for review of literature, as we have discussed, that could be one source of identifying the research problem. Second is unutilized or underutilized theory. So in my view, I haven't come across, maybe my ignorance, a good research on Kohlberg's theory or Erik Erikson's theory and its implications and its applications for school education and maybe for college education as well. So that might be a good area to work on or reflect on, whether I am committed enough to take up research on these two areas. And similarly, I'm yet to find a solution for teaching history using ICT. I haven't come across any research how I can make teaching of history interesting using ICT solution, though I have come across many websites providing virtual tours of museums, historical sites, but still more solutions are needed, and maybe somebody should do the research on how virtual tours of historical sites are affecting children's attitude towards learning or teaching history. So that can be done. Then another source of research problem identification could be seminars and conferences. Now you might be wondering, what do I do with seminars and conferences? They could be a very interesting source. And you know, you and I keep on getting a lot of notifications on our WhatsApp groups as well as through our mails as well, and through various forums that we are members in various forums about some new conferences, about some new seminars. Yes, Nilofarji, Kohlberg theory, because moral development is a necessity. Definitely, and it is less researched also. But what about seminars and conferences? I get usually information about 20 to 30 conferences in 15 days. Then I do sifting also. Sifting in the sense, then I zero down what all conferences and seminars I want to listen to and I want to participate in. That also gives me validation of my core interest area. And attending to seminar and conferences keeps me updated about the current researches, the new ideas, the new theories, the new ideas being discussed and debated during the conferences and seminars. And it also gives me a lot of thought for ideas. Say, for example, I am a person who is working towards disability inclusion. The latest trends that I am seeing in the conferences and seminars is people have almost stopped discussing about individual disability conditions and how to educate children with maybe severe disability conditions in special schools. The focus nowadays has shifted from special schools to integration in the mainstream school, that is inclusive. So these are the ideas that I'm getting from the seminars and conferences. Another very radical idea I got while listening to one of the seminars and conferences is they are focusing on STEM education at the college level. My query is, why not STEM education or interdisciplinary approach to teaching learning at the school level? If not from the primary or foundational level, let's try implementing it at the secondary level. So these many ideas I got from few seminars and conferences that I attended in inclusive education. Okay, let's move on. So we have seen 3 sources which you all are also aware of: review of related literature, unutilized, underutilized theory, and third is the seminars and conferences. Then what could be the next thing? Now the next maybe, okay, I give you all these points with the help of an example as well that I'm going to share. So now for me, if I have to do a research, I'm clear that I want to do research in education. That is the core area. And then in education itself, I want to do research in inclusive education. So I moved one step ahead, and in inclusive education also, do I want to focus on one particular disability condition? No, I don't want to focus on one disability condition. I want to work on inclusive schools and inclusive pedagogy practices. So my area is very clearly defined. Now what I have done the literature review, I have attended few conferences and workshops, and I have also gone through the theoretical framework. And I know that it originates from the special education. And it talks about equity, equality. It talks about equitable education. It talks about welcoming diversity. I'll explain it further with an example. But now let me ask myself, is it a good area to research on? Now, how will I decide whether this is a good area to research on? So there are few pointers. Let's understand them one by one. Originality. suppose I'm working on inclusive schools, how original my contribution would be. Will it be a original research? Will it be a unique research, or will I be merely going through the motion of doing the research, identifying the problem, selecting sample, collecting data, analyzing the data, writing a research report, coming up with inferences, writing the implications? These are the steps that we all are familiar with, right? So originality, I have to ponder upon. Inclusive schools. Is the idea original? Seems so, because many cities, the concept of inclusive schools may not be popular there. Then feasibility. Okay, I have decided, I have found that idea is original, but is it feasible to conduct research in this area? Now by feasibility, what I mean, will I be able to get the sample? Will I be able to get approval from my research committee? Will I be able to seek supervisor support? Will I be able to get a supervisor who has some background in this area? All these aspects need to be considered before we zero in on the research problem. Then administrative support. Sometimes it happens if you are specially planning for postdoctoral research area that you require administrative support either from your college administration or your institute's administration or from the funding agency. So that is also required, and sometimes you require administrative support for your study leaves as well. Then significance to the discipline. Now, what is the discipline? Discipline is the core area that we have talked about again and again. For me, inclusive education is my discipline that I'm going to research in. Now, what is the significance of my problem? Let's say inclusive schools or inclusive pedagogy practices. Will I be adding something new? Will I be making some changes? What am I perceiving in contributing to the already existing body of knowledge? That would define whether my research is significant to the discipline or not. Availability of requisite support. Will the inclusive school be able to support me in my research area? Will I be able to get cooperation of parents? Will I be able to get the cooperation of the teachers? Will the principal allow me? Will the Department of Education or Directorate of Education allow me access to the information that I want? What kind of material, resources and everything would be available? And this is directly linked to the population and family. Dr. Jignesh, please mute. Thank you. So availability of requisite support, then do I have the sample? Do I have the population clearly defined for the area of research that I wanted to research on? And then I have to assess my own competencies as well. When I'm saying my own competencies, my attitude, my ability to persevere, my ability to sustain, my ability to undertake the kind of hard work that is demanded. And will I be able to devote time? Will I be able to do justice to the area, to the problem that I have found or formulated for conducting the research? That also needs to be considered. Then again, is it a good area to research on? Few more pointers. Researchability. Say, for example, recall Piaget's theory, Kohlberg's theory, Erik Erikson's theory. So, is there still potential in the research ability or research sustainability? Suppose I wanted to conduct a research on Piaget's theory. What more I would be able to contribute? Is some new ideas in cognitive development around the corner that might be linked to Piaget's theory on which maybe nobody has done a large sample research, or maybe somebody has done a qualitative kind of a study? This is related to the concern of research ability. This is researchability of the problem and the research ability of the researcher as well. Both the things need to be considered here also. Then is the area clear and unambiguous? Now, what do I mean by clarity and unambiguity? Maybe I have decided that I'm going to work on Erik Erikson's or Kohlberg. But what I want to work on, do I have clarity regarding the sample, regarding the age group, regarding maybe my research question and objectives itself, or are they overlap? Do I have my delimitations clearly chalked out? Say, for example, while talking about moral development, do I want to do longitudinal study? And if I'm planning a longitudinal study, what is the researchability? Do I have the courage, the strength, and the sustenance that is required for a longitudinal study? Or do I want to conduct a survey kind of a thing and then collect basic data and compare data inference, statistical analysis, and come out with a observation and insight? What I wanted to do exactly, that clarity without any overlapping things or without any ambiguity embedded in it needs to be made right in the beginning. And you know, one research proposal I came across, the person was so clear. Hats off to that research synopsis that I've read on. Objectives were very clearly spelled out, and not only the objectives, what are the tools that the person is going to use for satisfying each objective was also listed. So the person was quite clear what he or she wanted to do without any doubt. If the person has worked so much on the proposal with utmost clarity of the research questions and the sample and the data collection tools and of course the statistical treatment in case of quantitative analysis. That brings lots of clarity to me as a researcher. And of course, since it's a long time task, it's not an overtime task, you need to devote at least 3 to 4 years of your time for attaining the PhD degree for which you might wanted to do research, or maybe it's your part of your professional responsibility. Still, a good research takes minimum 2 to 3 years. So am I really interested in that particular area? That question also needs to be asked again and again to myself. And then empirical. Will I be able to gather tangible evidence for the problem area? Say, for example, how do I measure the improvement in morality of students with whom I am working past 6 months? Is the improvement due to my research intervention, or is the improvement due to some intervening variable? How do I know about that? What are my means to know about that? Quantifiable, observable, measurability of the variables that I have decided to work upon. Then relevance. I have seen somebody mixing two topics, morality and mathematics. Morality and social science, to some extent, we all can agree that it can go hand in hand. What about morality and mathematics? Think about it, how the two are related and what could be the findings of that particular research. It's like research doesn't mean just for the sake of novelty, we mix these 2 or 3 things together. May not be a good idea, but looking at your effort, your time, energy invested in that particular kind of a research also may achieve your desired expected goal. But the question that I'm raising here is it really relevant to the discipline? Is it really worth the effort? Won't it be like in one movie, the hero and heroines are in a garden of mango, and in another movie, They are in the garden of maybe say oranges or maybe in apple. Do we want to conduct that kind of a research? What is the relevance of that? We need to ask serious questions to ourselves while deciding whether the research area that I'm moving towards is a good or not. Then my approach towards it. This, of course, required discussion with your friends, your colleagues, and most important, your supervisor. Then, of course, ethical consideration. In India, while doing research, how many of us, including myself, I'm asking this question now while talking to all of you, while collecting data for my PhD. This idea never occurred to me, nor my supervisor suggested that I should seek permission to collect data from children from their parents. They might have some objections, the ethical considerations while you're doing with the human subject, or maybe otherwise as well. What are the ethical issues that may arise? The data I'm collecting, the research that I'm conducting, the focus group discussions that I'm conducting, the intervention programs that I'm giving, is it somehow going to create some negative impact, some negative effect, some harmful reaction, some harm among my subjects? The ethical consideration. Is there any danger, indirect or direct, that needs to be worked on? Right? So, as of now, India as a nation, we do mention ethical considerations somewhere I find in the journals while reviewing articles as well. But in the research synopsis and proposal, I rarely find the mention of how ethical considerations would be addressed. So that also needs to be contemplated. And before you finalize your research question, research area, just ask yourself, what are the economic considerations? To share with you all, when I was planning my PhD research, I thought I'll go pan-India. And I wanted to collect data pan-India. Then my supervisor made me see the nonsense that I was thinking of. She was like, you'll get data from 10,000 people. I said, so what, ma'am? So what? You'll have to get the multiple copies emailed. No, by that time we were not using email. So it was like, you'll have to get them printed, you'll have to get them posted, then you'll have to wait for their answers. How much money, time, energy you're going to invest in that? Getting me? So being researcher, being an enthusiastic researcher, we need to consider few points. So what are the economic considerations? Am I in the position to spend that much of financial resources for my research? Very serious question that I have to ask. Then I realized by limiting my sample to Delhi also, I ended up spending around 45 to 50,000 some 10 years back. So economic considerations that needs to be taken care of. Another question. This is related to environment. If you are working maybe in life sciences or some biology, zoology at all, directly related to you, but environment is much more than physical and natural environment. Will it be considered harmful to the environment here? More relevant for all of us would be the mental environment, the psychological environment, the health and well-being that also needs to be considered. Will I be doing something that will make my subjects addicted to mobiles? Or am I doing something that will make my subjects, that will expose my subjects to maybe computer, some websites that may not be good for them at this young age? Will my intervention has a chance of making my subjects addicted to games, mobile games and all? Relevant, pertinent questions I need to ask myself. because it is my responsibility. During one workshop, I asked a participants, what are the things for which you are responsible for? Usual answers that are coming to your mind and my mind as well. What? I'm responsible for the well-being of my family members, health of my family members, progress of my children. I'm responsible for my own growth. Right? All these things are coming to my mind. One participant said, I am responsible for my happiness. I'm not responsible for the flower that is blooming. I'm not responsible for the sunshine that is. So think of as out of box answers as possible. That will give you solutions. That would be your first real brainstorming. Be honest to yourself. Then, what are the technical requirements and my abilities to handle the same? Suppose I'm collecting qualitative data from 50 students, their diaries, for over a month or so. Then what? Will I be able to do the thematic analysis? And how do I find ICT solution for thematic analysis? Are the technical solutions available? And if yes, they are available, will I be able to use them? Say, for example, one person wanted to study the facial gestures of few people. Now, the scope of subjectivity was there in this particular research problem. Whatever faces I'm able to see right now of the participants whose videos are on, I may be being very subjective by looking at your gestures, right? But as a researcher, I need to have the objective observation. So do I have the technical solution available for that? If yes, then am I able to handle the software solution or ICT solution to give me the inference that I wanted to analyze the data that the way I wanted to do? So this question is also very important. And yes, Nishi, you are very right to point out that we have important stakeholders. That is why we are not able to connect our curricular areas with the day-to-day life of the children. Because school works in one shell and home is at another shell. So what we need to do? We have to work as facilitator to bring everything on the same platform so that each one of us can contribute collaboratively and respect each other. Why parents are not considered as an important stakeholder or active collaborator in education? That seems to me a problem worth researching. What is the attitude of teachers, educational administrators, policymakers towards parents' contribution? On paper, we say very high words we use with good sentiments that yes, without parents, the system will not exist. Parents are the main, mother is the first teacher of the child. But when that poor mother comes to ATM, ready to listen to their mother's observation of his or her child. Similarly, likewise, the parents do not accept your observation as a teacher of the child. Then they say, घर में तो ये ऐसे नहीं करता, at home this child doesn't behave like this, but in school you are sharing all these kind of observations. So why parents and teacher are often standing facing each other with not so smiling faces? Might be a good research area to work on. And then what are the resources required? Do I have all these resources? What all permissions I would require to enter the school if the focus is on school? If I'm working on persons with mental illness, will I be able to get the population and the sample size that I'm looking at? The resource. Do I have the means to talk to or elicit desired expression from a person who is not able to speak? Will I able to get the responses from a person who is not comfortable in English and Hindi, maybe more comfortable in Marathi or Gujarati? The resource requirement that needs to be considered. Then, second last question, what are the policy consideration and constraints? You and I are well aware that National Education Policy was released in 2020. There are many areas, many suggestions given in the policy. So if you are looking for a research area, the source of research area that is contemporary, that is relevant also, and that may not face many opposition maybe from your research committee, look for NEP 2020 document and you will find many ideas suggested there, but you'll have to read between the lines. NEP talks about dropouts, NEP talks about technology in education, NEP talks about teacher education, the maladies, the current situation. So many dimensions are mentioned there. That would also be a very good source of finding a research problem. Then, of course, possible time plan. You know what happens? Somebody I know enrolled in the PhD degree, and that time it was mandatory to go on study leave for 2 years. So assuming 2 years is a huge time, so we'll work tomorrow, we'll work day after. Just like this, the entire time duration of 1 year, 1.5 years was over. Can you imagine the situation of that person now? So it's better to have a possible time plan with clear-cut deliverables ready. And often revisit your timed action plan. Often revisit this plan, whether you are on the right track or not. And do not forget to share your possible time plan with your supervisor, because that is one person who is going to keep you on your toes regarding the time and deliverable. Okay, so we have talked about originality of the research problem and your contribution to the research. So I've taken this slide from one of the presentations available on Google. I'll share all the links with you. So it's like there is no use of wasting one's time and energy on a problem already studied thoroughly by others. Say, for example, Piaget's cognitive development, researched, re-researched from many angles. Then a researcher may come up with different views on the definition of terms used in the previous one. Yes? Usable, doable. That means how we understood inclusion before NEP 2020 and how I am understanding inclusion post NEP 2020. That may be an original reflection, but may not be worthy of a PhD kind of a research, but definitely worthy of a research article. So that can also be thought about. And since now I am a person of inclusive education, I am a person who has given more than 20 years in disability inclusion. So the example from disability inclusion will come naturally to me. Okay. Let's move on. What does this picture reminds you of? Yes. What is the first thought that's coming to your mind by looking at this picture? Anyone? You can write in the chat box as well. And if you want to speak, you can. Different people have different perspective. Thank you, Sonali ji. Viewpoint, very good. perception of element by various people, different views, if they are identifying the gender of the element, a very innovative and out of box. What else? What it has to do with the research problem? Who is standing behind the elephant? Concept formation. Different people have different vision. Right. So basically, this gives you the perspective. There is a problem. You can approach that particular area, say for example, disability, from the perspective of sociology, from the perspective of psychology, phenomenology. You can approach disability at the level of school by looking at pedagogy practices. You can look at disability from the medicine perspective. You can look at the issue of disability from child development. You can look at the issue of disability from the stereotype. You can look at the issue of disability from the gender perspective. Or you can take a little bit of everything and come out with your own solution as well. Maybe this is how we can also approach a research. And this is usually applicable when you have zeroed down your research area by review of related literature. So let's move on. I hope everything is clear till now, because I know that I'm repeating most of the things that you might be available with, that you might be already knowing. So take it as a refresher kind of a thing. Because we all have undergone one kind or another kind of research. They may be wondering what it is and try to name the four-legged animal. Absolutely true. Their mind is creating various concepts. They're exploring different parts, different viewpoints as per their understanding, different perception of the same thing, holistic picture of the problem. Different people have different visions. Absolutely true. Very wise participants we have today. So let's try to understand, let's try to define what is a research problem. A research problem is nothing but some difficulty, either of a theoretical or practical character, that an individual or business encounters and desires to get a solution for the same. So basically, we need to start with a problem while thinking of a research project. Let me share an example with you all. I was working on a project and we came out with a prototype of our textbooks, one digitally infused prototype of the textbook. And very excitedly, me and my research team went to a school for tryout of that. The very first question asked by the teacher in a school really baffled the entire team, because we have never thought of the problem from that particular angle. Just a second. Sorry about this interruption. So I was sharing this. Yes, we went to a particular school, very excited, the whole team, that we have done something great. And the question asked by the teacher literally baffled us all. And we were all like, how to answer this particular lady who is teaching in primary. And here we are, a group of 5 researchers who are PhDs, who have lots of experience and who are working in higher education. So, the first thing is that everybody's ego got hurt. But then we managed the situation and we thanked the lady for asking that particular question. That question was, what is the pedagogical approach that you want me to follow in the classroom, using your textbook that you have brought here in the school? It really baffled the entire team. But then that was the cue for each one of us, that we thought of how the pedagogy practice needs to be modified in the light of the prototype that we have developed. Right? So be open. The intention of sharing this incident is nothing but to give you a message that be open, be flexible, and be ready to accept criticism from every angle. That will enhance the quality of your research. So let's see what the next cartoon is trying to tell. Tell each one of us. A problem? How can I identify a research problem? So how are you going to identify a research problem? Anyone? Any 2% from the chat, in the chat box. How are you going to identify the research problem? Dr. Faizan Heather, would you like to share? Okay, Meenal Rawat is saying finding gaps in the current studies by observation, by reading literature review and finding the gap by doing the literature review. True. Yes, this is how we are going to find a research problem. And then whatever research problem you have zeroed on, just run through the pointers for a good research problem. That includes originality, researchability, financial commitments, technical aspects, ethical considerations, adding to the discipline, and over-researched or unresearched areas. Analyzing the existing problem from a different dimension as well would be a good area to research. Then, when you do PhD, now I'm recalling a very episode of a comic series, humorous, wherein it was depicted that a PhD scholar was often seen as probable candidate for marriage with the children of research supervisors. May not be the case nowadays, but it was a satire on the plight of research students. So we have to consider some concerns regarding supervisors, and please don't get offended. You and I have been both on both sides of the table, being a research scholar as well as being the supervisor as well. So this is a joke on myself as well. So supervisor concerns include interest. Whether the supervisor shares my interest in the area or not. Will it work if I want to work in inclusive pedagogy practices and I approach a researcher who has interest in physics, pedagogy of physics? Will it work? May not be. So try matching interest, try finding a supervisor whose interest matches with you. Second consideration would be qualification. Is the supervisor qualified enough, recognized by the university to guide the research? Then relevant experience. Whether the supervisor has relevant experience in the area and as well as guiding the research. And here, if the person is new, but you can go for the credentials, how innovative researches the person has conducted. I came across a very interesting document that tells in detail what are the disciplinary concerns regarding research problems. What are the characteristics it should have regarding problems should have as far as discipline of a research is concerned. Say, for example, of course, again and again you are saying that it should point at the gap in the field. Okay, somebody is saying by current scenario, felt some difficulty from our environment. So funny. Okay, please share us what is so funny. I'll be more interested in questions and queries. Yes, I said this to everyone. So you have replied to this. Okay, good afternoon. Okay. So as far as the dimension of discipline is concerned in zeroing down on the research area or finding a research problem. Yes, a gap in the field's knowledge. And you can also look for something the field has not finished researching. Say, for example, children's development, the area of moral development, the area of emotional development might be a good start. Then an unexplained observation, an observation that sticks out. It could be anything. It could be your day-to-day observation regarding your own children, regarding the study habits of your own children, regarding the cartoon viewing habits of your own children. Any observation that sticks out. Something that has not yet been categorized, analyzed, or explained with the existing knowledge, that can also be a very good pointer. Something that does not seem right, new ways to analyze existing data. This point is related to the previous one. There could be any contrast that can still be discussed. There are many studies on siblings, but are there studies on siblings of children who may not be able to speak? Are there studies on siblings that may have a gifted child or that may have a child who is not able to do well? Here I will be able to suggest you a good movie to see as well as a book to read. The name of the movie is Wonder, W-O-N-D-E-R, and the book is again by the same name, Wonder. If you are okay, so somebody is saying that joke that you cracked on supervisor. So the joke is still lost to me. But thank you, Nanaji. Okay, something that is currently being debated in the field. Yes, whether we give enough freedom to the girls, or what is the impact of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao? So what do we do with our sons? Do we need to consider their survival, their literature as well, or do we need to consider only on the girls only? Lighter note, I just wanted to flag this issue. Something that can and should be argued for or against. This is, I mean, a favorite topic to each one of us. You throw any topic and about from 230 participants, I'm sure 50 will take one strong viewpoint, 150 will take another strong viewpoint, and the in-between number will say we are neutral because they may not have anything to say. This is a quality of being human. So we'll have to find out what concerns our discipline, what are the valid logics that are available both in for and against of a particular idea that we are debating on to research. Okay, now this is very interesting pointer that has been given by Reniker and Jognis in 2015, something that is in conflict with the general view. So you might have seen all the exit polls that are predicting Congress when. So conflicting view would be, you say that this will not happen, this is going against the tide, and let's research on this. Might be link it to your discipline, which says that maybe related to child rearing practices, that children who live in joint families are more tolerant, they are able to express themselves well. This is a generally accepted view. Let's do a research that conflicts all this idea. That might be a good addition to the discipline, existing disciplinary knowledge. And the last pointer given by them in 2015 is something that must be evaluated, changed, transformed, constructed, or that needs new design. Say, for example, NEP talks about comfortable schooling, comfortable learning environment. So when NEP is talking about comfortable learning environment, is it talking only about girls or boys, or is it talking about transgenders as well? Is it talking about transforming the classrooms, the size of the classroom in the physical dimensions, or is it talking about the the pupil teacher ratio, and of course the relationship between parents and the student. The ownership of learning by students themselves. Is the learning entirely responsibility of the teachers, or the students need to be responsible for their own learning? And all those who are planning to see the movie Wonder, you are definitely going to enjoy it. Not because it's one of my favorite movies on inclusive education, but because it has shown the various dimensions, the life of the person from the angle of elder sister, the mother, the father, and the person then himself, or the child himself or herself, then the peers at school, administrators at school. Really refreshing book. So what I did was I first read the book and then I watched the movie. So that can also be another thing. And with movies, I recall another thing that needs to be researched on is depiction of disability in our movies and media. Needs to do a lot of research on that. And maybe depiction of relation between Saas and Bahu, daughter and mother-in-laws in the movies, or maybe between two females in a family, or maybe between two males, son-in-law and father-in-law in the movies. All these kind of areas needs some serious research. Then let's see what the another cartoon is saying. So the other cartoon is saying, I have another visitor in my room. I'm asking her to sit down. So maybe we'll continue just for 5-10 more minutes. Then I'll give you some class work to be done and we'll continue. I'm here only. So this cartoon is saying, so you're gonna change the world with an online petition, a Facebook status update, and a couple of retweets. You're right. I should probably share few more links. This may be our enthusiasm that with which we start our research. Give me just 30. Thank you, friends, for tolerating. Okay. So, this cartoon, why I connected to this cartoon is your friends and your peers, your colleagues may ask, Acha, you're doing research on this particular topic. So what are you thinking? And the enthusiasm of the researcher who is starting his or her research work is, I am going to change the world. The world will change after my research and after my find. But that rarely happens. So mid-course correction के लिए भी ये cartoon हो सकता है. Okay. So now let's take an example. Though I have been taking a lot of examples, but whatever we have discussed so far, let's do this with an example. So suppose my research problem that I have identified is practices related to inclusive education. Now, how do I know, will this be a good area to research? So, in order to decide whether this area that I have zeroed in on is practices related to inclusive education, is a good area to research. For that, the pointers that I've discussed earlier are originality. Is this area original? Has nobody researched on this? Has nobody thought about it? Maybe in India, maybe people may not have thought about it, but what about abroad? So what will give me idea about this dimension? The literature review. Then I have to ponder on feasibility of this area. What do I mean by feasibility? If I want to study the practices related to inclusive education, that means I am looking for a sample where inclusive education is being practiced at the school level, maybe at primary level, and what kind of inclusion they are practicing, disability inclusion or disadvantage inclusion. Is the child coming regularly to inclusive schools? How long the child stays in the school? Is the child coming regularly? What are the intervening factors? Will I be able to measure the intervening factor? The feasibility of the research problem that I am zeroing. And another thing, can anyone tell me, is this a good problem to start my research work? Anyone? Practices related to inclusive education. What is missing in this research problem? I'm waiting for your answer. What is missing in this research problem? Practices related to inclusive education. What kind of practices? Okay. Good. Method. Okay. Which level? Great. Yes. Very good. So the characters and to whom? Very nice. So that means my problem and the way I word it should be able to give the reader an idea about the level of research, about maybe sample, about maybe the objectives, and maybe a hint of what I plan to do in that particular research. So I can modify this example as practices related to inclusive education at primary level. So that quantifies it a little better. But I'm sure if both you and I are sitting together on this example, we'll be able to word it much better. So I have pondered upon it from the perspective of originality, from the perspective of feasibility, from the perspective of, yes, administrative support and significance to the discipline. Suppose I Google this and I find no researches, real good researches. So what does this tell me? Does this tell me that is it a good area to research on? Yes, methods, specification, variables in particular, specification, need to fill gap between the Indian society and the curriculum we follow. Absolutely true. So tell me, I'm looking for relevant literature, or I'm doing the review of literature, ROL as we usually call it, and I'm not able to find a good study. Should I do research in this area? Yes, true. Yes, there is scope. And not only scope, there is huge scope. This is the gap that we are talking about. If I'm not able to locate past studies, that means there is a huge gap. That means my problem, I should be really excited about that particular problem area or the area of research that I have zeroed it on, because I'm not able to find any past relevant researches, maybe in Indian context. That means accidentally I have hit upon the gold mine, or maybe I should call it as a diamond mine. So that will give me a lot of ideas about research, and lot of new areas would be open. Maybe I'm doing the path-breaking research. Every researcher's dream is to do some path-breaking research, right? So mine is also there and still yet to be fulfilled. Yes, because it is a new area, absolutely true. Okay, so another pointer that I need to ponder on is population and sample, my own competency, whether I'll be able to do justice to this area of practices related to inclusive education in the primary schools. Then what are the ethical considerations? Will it be ethical to ask questions or subject children without disabilities and with disabilities to my research treatment? How do I take opinion of a child who is not able to speak? How do I take opinion of the child who may not be able to hear? These are the ethical considerations. Then researchability, whether the problem has the ability to throw light. Yes, we have seen literature review is not available. That would be a very good sign. Then I need to build more clarity. The level of classrooms, the nature of schools that I wanted to study, and whether my hypotheses are there or not. I need to build my hypothesis, whether I want to conduct quantitative research or whether I want to conduct the qualitative research. That will bring more clarity without any ambiguity. Pardon? Yes, madam, go on. Somebody was unmuting.
I
And if
suppose
I'm-
that was by mistake.
Okay. But I believe the word that I heard was realistic. Yes, the research problem needs to be realistic, doable. That, of course, are the practical considerations. Let's move on. Okay. Again, I'm taking the same problem and let me ask these questions to myself. Will I be able to manage the financial considerations? Suppose I'm living in Delhi and I'm not able to find any inclusive school in Delhi, and will I be able to bear the finances related to travel, that I may need to travel to various states? Environmental aspect, the considerations, ethical considerations, the physical environment, the natural environment also if possible, the technical requirements and my abilities to handle the same. If I'm not able to get enough number of sample schools, that means I have to rely on the qualitative data. And do I have the ICT solutions available to analyze the qualitative data? And do I have the ability? Do I have the interest? Do I have the time and energy, effort, and other resources to invest in learning the new techniques that are required maybe for data analysis and coming out with some inference? Then the resources that I need to utilize. Then, of course, the policy considerations and constraints and the possible timeline plan. These are some particular pertinent questions I need to ask myself before I submit my research plan. Then usually this is what happens with all of us. We are working in scientific research and maybe our aim is we'll solve this problem using science. So we have zeroed down a problem. Then we are theorizing the result. We have solved the problem. An actual result. The problem is more complex than we first thought. So the problem persists. Many a times this happens. Mid-course research, at least I felt what I started with, the middle path showed me that I ended up doing something else only. Maybe due to environmental factors or maybe due to non-availability of sample and all. Another cartoon that you might be able to relate to. We have studies of fruit flies, mice, hamsters, frogs, monkeys, and men with this condition. But medical research using women as subject just never occurred to anybody. Might be the missing link of transgenders as well. Might be the missing link of disabled students with disability. Might be the missing link of children with autism. Might be the missing link of children with speech impairment, or might be the missing link of children coming from disadvantaged sections of society. We need to look at many dimensions. one of my favorite cartoon related to research. Before the graduate school, the person might have this enthusiasm. I'm going to research whatever I want. Then in graduate school or graduation, post-graduation, what happens? I'm going to research whatever my professor wants. Then once you are assistant professor, maybe your thought changed to, I'm going to research whatever my tenure committee wants. Then tenured professor, I'm going to research whatever my grant committee wants. And once you become emeritus professor, I'm going to research whatever, give me whatever. And then what happens in the end? Research in peace. So this is majorly what I wanted to share with you regarding the research, selection of the research problem. But what about sample? Okay, so let me go back to the sample research problem. The example that I gave you, practices related to inclusive classrooms at primary level. So what happens at the primary level? What sample that I need to take? I may need to take a sample of, since I would like to work on inclusive pedagogy practices. So what happens in inclusive pedagogy practices at the primary level? I need to understand that in inclusion, I have to observe the practices related to disadvantages and disabilities. So my operational definition will give me an idea what kind of disadvantages I'm looking at. And my operational definition on disability will also give me an idea what kind of disability conditions I'm looking for in inclusive schools, right? So now this is my population would be defined like this. And yes, you have a question on sampling. Give me just 2 minutes, Nishaji, then I'm going to take your question. So now population is defined that I'm going to include children from disadvantaged background, children from disability condition, studying in mainstream. Now this is the population and children from maybe from class 1 to 5 because I'm considering only the primary school. Next would be the sample size. Population is defined. The sample would be maybe I'm aware that 21 disability conditions are recognized in RPWD Act 2016. So do I want to consider schools having inclusive classrooms for each disability condition? Is it feasible? May not. Because I may not find any child with Parkinson's in the classroom. I may not find any child with acid attack in the classroom. I may not be able to find a child with autism in my school, the sample school. So I have to decide very carefully what would be my sample size. So in this scenario, particular in the light of this particular example that I have taken, I may say that I will take 50 to 55 schools as my sample. And out of these, half of the schools maybe I will study the pedagogy practices related to children with disadvantaged backgrounds. And I'll also consider half of the school which may have children with disability, any kind of disability. Because my little experience prior to research says children with visual impairment and hearing impairment, deafness, speech impairment might be there in the school, but may not be. Children from other disability conditions would be easily available in the school. So number of schools decided. Now next is, do I need to take the pedagogy practices and its impact on children without disability as well? Or do I need to consider only children with disability? So the answer to your sample size lies in the way you are framing your objectives. So in research, please remember, the mantra is your objectives or the research question. The research questions will decide your sample size. The research question will guide you towards your final quantity of your sample size and your other variables, right? So it's very important to identify the dependent and the independent variables, frame the research questions, hypothesis, and the objectives that will guide you to the sample size and further aspects related to it. Yes, Nisha ji, you can ask question. Nisha Saini. Thank you, Susan Joshi ji, for saying it's an informative talk, but I know myself, I haven't given you anything new, just refreshed your knowledge, maybe supported with examples. Okay, Nisha ji.
Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Miss Nisha, you can unmute yourself. Just try once again.
Yes. Good evening, ma'am. Hello.
Hello,
Am I
yes, we
audible?
can hear you. Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm asking from an example. My research is on digital pedagogy and emotional well-being of teacher educators and teacher training.
Okay.
So, how to select sampling type based on research problem? Is it with the help of tools or the problem itself by taking
Okay.
the statement of the.
Just a second. Let me write it down somewhere. You're working on online solutions?
I'm working on digital pedagogy
Digital pedagogy
and
and
emotional well-being
emotional well-being.
of teacher educators. You can
Okay.
say of teachers. You can say of teachers.
Let's say
How
teacher
to-
educators only.
Yes, teacher educators.
Okay.
So my question is how to select sampling type? Whether
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me one thing. What are your objectives for this research? How many objectives you have already framed?
I have framed 4 objectives.
Okay.
And
What
there
are those?
Just wait. Ma'am, to explore the to find out the digital pedagogy practices, to find out the awareness of digital pedagogy of teacher educators. Second is to explore the emotional well-being of teacher educators.
Okay.
The third is to gauge the perception of teacher educators of BA towards digital pedagogy.
Okay.
And next is to observe the digital pedagogy in BA classrooms.
Okay, so
of
you're
teacher
observing the practices as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
And I'm also observing the impact of digital pedagogy on emotional well-being of teacher educators.
अच्छा, impact कैसे study करोगे?
Ma'am, interview.
Impact कैसे निकल के आएगा interview से?
मैम एक्चुअली इम्पैक्ट नहीं रखा है, इन्फ्लुएंस रखा है. जो
इन्फ्लुएंस भी कैसे निकालोगे? एक बेसलाइन डेटा तो स्टडी करना पड़ेगा ना, बेसलाइन कुछ ओपिनियन कलेक्ट करना पड़ेगा.
मैम डिजिटल पेडागोजी के लिए आई एम यूजिंग लिकर्ट स्केल.
नहीं वो ठीक है, वो टूल तो आप कुछ भी यूज कर लो. व्हाट आर नाउ? ओके
मैम आई हैव डिस्कस्ड सम एक्सपर्ट्स ऑन दिस इन्फ्लुएंस ओनली
perfectly okay.
And I came to the solution that interview is fine for the teacher educators, and I have to segregate it into 3 levels. There are 3 levels of teacher educators. One who are highly qualified with the digital pedagogy practices. Second, with the who are semi qualified, and third, who are not using any digital practice pedagogy.
That you can get from your very first objective when you are asking about digital pedagogy awareness, right?
Further, ma'am, you may please guide me.
The very first objective that you said, that you will assess the awareness of teacher educators on digital pedagogy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the response that you will receive on this first objective, that will help you divide your sample into 3 categories that you intend to study: highly, middle,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
not so familiar, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So then emotional well-being. Now, emotional well-being has nothing to do with digital pedagogy. As of now, my personal opinion, you may have something different, no issues at all, right? Then
Yes,
third
ma'am.
is perception towards digital pedagogy. Yes, very interesting dimension, because once is awareness, after awareness, you're moving on to studying the perception on digital pedagogy. Perfectly okay. So how are you going to distinguish between awareness and perception? That should be there in your operational definition.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? Now, once you have done the perception of teacher educators on digital pedagogy, that will give you an idea that maybe out of a since you are talking about teacher educators, so a sample of somewhere around 80 to 100 teacher educators should be suffice, depending where you are located, whether the population of more than 100 or 500 exist in your area, how many teacher education colleges you have to visit, the nature of teacher education colleges as well, the government colleges or the private colleges or the affiliated colleges, or you want to study the take the sample from the university level as well, or you want to consider all these factors, divide them into subgroups, and then maybe further divide them into male and female, then you may want to have further subgroup based on the experience. So all these intravenous variables you need to take care. Then you will have to decide how you are going to analyze the data regarding, are you going to analyze the data regarding all these variables that I have just now listed? That needs to be discussed.
How
Yes.
to select sample? How to select number of sample if my research is mixed method?
Okay, it's a mixed method research. And how many teacher education colleges are there in your vicinity?
Ma'am, there are 24 colleges. I'm taking of one university that has 24 colleges.
That university has 24 colleges, and if I'm not wrong, each college may have 5 faculty members.
Right, ma'am, right.
Okay, so 5 faculty members gives me, so your population is maybe around
Can I
200
use
of,
Yemen's formula for it?
pardon?
Can I use Yemen's formula for calculating the sample size?
Definitely, definitely. You can apply any statistics here. No worries at all. And you can also choose convenient sample also, because many of the teacher educators may not be willing to participate in the research.
Actually,
To
ma'am,
a
I'm
number of
taking
factors
teacher
as well.
trainees as well. So I thought it won't be convenient sampling.
Have you discussed this with your supervisor?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So
Ma'am,
what is the
actually,
suggestion?
I also have to discuss again with my supervisor. But I got a chance today to discuss.
No.
With
The query is very welcome. Very
yes,
welcome.
ma'am.
So you can have my number as well, and you can approach me.
Thank you,
want.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you,
Right?
ma'am.
And
Right.
I'm writing my email ID in the chat box. So in case you want to approach me regarding any research topic, I would be more than happy to respond to your emails as long as it has relevant questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I
My
have
pleasure.
noted.
Thank you. So
Okay,
over
ma'am.
to Surekha ji. Or no, some more queries from
Yes.
the parties.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good evening.
My pleasure, Nishaji. So let me thank everyone who has appreciated the slide. Thank you so much. Hurriedly banai hai slides. But I love sharing my favorite cartoons on every topic. Achha, I also wanted to share a story of animal school, but now no time. So I'm giving you writing another topic in the mail. Please read this story. It is a very interesting story that gives you lot of idea about inclusion in schools, inclusion in classrooms. So I think many people are saying thank you, and many people are just saying good session, thank you so much. So that means no queries. And as my professor used to say, when you are receiving no queries, that means either your students have understood everything or they have not understood anything. So being very hopeful, very optimistic, I'm assuming the scenario is the first one. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I too assume that everybody is having the same, everybody is understood, and that is the option that I personally am going for. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the session. It was an extensive session, and not only did you guide us on how to decide on a research problem, but also you told us what not to do when we are deciding a research problem, which was very helpful, which we don't come across normally. The examples that you gave were very interesting, and it corresponded very well with the explanation that you were giving. Thank you so much, ma'am, on behalf of the participants and the organizing colleges. I thank you thank you a lot for coming today.
My pleasure. And any question and queries that you want to raise, just like Nisha ji, I'll be more than happy to respond to you on email.
Thank
As
you
long
so
as
much,
you
ma'am.
refrain from sharing good morning, good evening, good afternoon. message. Thank you.
Thank you
Allow
so
me
much,
to
ma'am.
leave, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the participants who joined today. We'll end today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.